for the last time, let's begin. Are you ready for the same joke a third time? Welcome to the stream, everyone.
Let me go and make sure we're live real quick. 1 second, guys. Gotta check my phone. Make sure the stream's good. We've been having some problems lately. YouTube's giving me...
Control-Shift-T.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. I'm real behind.
Everyone's very behind. I think the problem was there was a TV box blocking my Wi-Fi extender, so I had to move it.
Okay.
It seems like the internet's being stronger now.
I love you.
Love you too.
My run for my money. And they demonetized my channel, by the way, so you know how that goes.
Even though I made this joke the previous 2 times, seriously though, Nathan, the reason your channel has been demonetized by YouTube is because you have video on it of you committing crimes. You have a video of you going to a playground at a school and harassing children about your weird flat earth shit. I'm surprised your channel hasn't been deleted.
We're live. Guys, I want to talk to you real quick about gravity. This is the glue that holds all the globe lies together. And so depending on what you Google, you'll get different answers about gravity. For example, if you just Google gravity, it'll say, gravity is most accurately described by the general theory of relativity proposed by Albert Einstein, who we'll get to in 1 second, which describes gravity not as a force, but as a consequence of the curvature of space-time. But if you Google law of gravity, you'll get...
Okay, you're comparing relativity to Newtonian physics. That's what your issue is. Newton's laws and Newtonian physics describe gravity more or less as a force because it's a simpler way of explaining things and understanding them, but it's not a complete picture. Then you have Einstein come along and other people who kind of spell out both general and special relativity, which gives a more specific and accurate picture of what's going on with gravity. So we experience gravity more or less as a force of attraction, right? I drop this, it goes towards the Earth because the Earth has a large mass, and mass seems to attract other mass. So viewing it as a force is a way of describing what we see in the real world. When you get down to stuff like general and special relativity, mathematically we find that it makes more sense to describe these things as a consequence of the warpage of space-time. And then you get into shit like quantum physics, which I barely understand Newtonian physics, so I don't get. The difference, though, Nathan, is that I also trust that there are people out there who do understand these things and go to school and get PhDs and study their entire lives to learn and expand the pool of knowledge of physics. So when they say gravity, they think, as far as they know now, because remember, all science is sort of the best conclusion we can come to at a time. It's less of a conclusion and more where we think things are at in terms of our understanding of concepts, and those things can change. Usually over time, our understanding and the specifics of our understandings refine, right? So Newton's understanding of gravity, well, useful in trying to figure out like how fast things will fall, how much things are going to be pulled by gravity based upon their mass. That doesn't give a complete picture of the reality of the situation, and I'd imagine even Einstein's general relativity isn't the complete picture. Quantum physics probably isn't the complete picture. I'd imagine it'll be a very, very long time if humans continue to survive before we get a complete understanding of how gravity works.
Newton's law of universal gravitation is usually stated that every particle attracts every other particle in the universe with a force.
Yeah, Newton was like hundreds and hundreds of years before Einstein. However, Newtonian laws still work more or less for what we needed to use them for at the time.
Okay? But gravity is most accurately described not as...
Yeah, there's like 300 years between these people, dude. Let's take a look at Newton. What year was he born? Newton was born in 1643. So we have like 300, 250 in terms of years between the two. It's how science works. You refine and expand the pool of knowledge, and sometimes, yeah, you look at things like Newton's understanding of gravity and you say, It worked for what we needed to use it for, but our understanding of how it works is expanded. Here's the math that shows why this works. Blah, 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 blah.
As a force, but as the consequence of what Albert Einstein told us, okay? So I just want you guys to know before we go into this video, talking about Albert Einstein, he has the most accurately described accepted theory for gravity, and he's a total fraud. He's a bigot. He plagiarized everything.
Well, and what are you basing that Einstein was a bigot? I don't know, because he was in the 20s and 30s. It's entirely possible he held certain racist views, but in what way does that change what his equations said? Math doesn't have an opinion on whether or not the person who wrote it is racist, right? It wouldn't matter. Let's see what... I don't know why he's saying Einstein's a bigot, so let's look this up. Einstein racist? Question mark? I don't know. Einstein's travel diaries reveal racist comments. That's a shame. Albert Einstein, the German-born Nobel Prize-winning physicist, became an outspoken civil rights advocate after immigrating to the United States in the 30s to escape the Nazis, but newly published travel diaries from the 20s, when Einstein and his wife Elsa embarked on a months-long voyage to the Far East and Middle East, reveal a younger man who himself harbored xenophobic and even racist views. In the passages from the travel diaries of Albert Einstein, edited by Zieves, Rosencrantz, Einstein uses on the character and nature of the people he met in Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Japan, Palestine, sometimes in insulting and stereotypical terms. The Chinese, Einstein wrote, were industrious, but also filthy. Oh no. He described them as a peculiar, herd-like nation, often more like automatons than people. Even though he only spent a few days in China, Einstein felt confident enough to cast judgment on the entire country and its inhabitants. He also said, "It would be a pity if the Chinese supplant other races," Einstein wrote. "For the likes of us, the mere thought is unspeakably dreary. Yuck." Here's the thing, though, Nathan. Einstein, his personal opinions have nothing to do with whether or not the theories he put forth are true. I could say that's a fucked up thing for Einstein to say, and it's a completely separate issue from whether or not E actually equals MC squared, right? So, I don't know why you feel the need to bring it up. It's fine if you want to actually discuss the character of Einstein, but that's not why you're bringing it up. It comes off like a weird ad hoc attack. Do I have ad hoc on my bingo card? Let's see. Doesn't understand the matrix or metaphor for being trans, the gay agenda, false flag, misattribution of coincidence, expert has a ridiculous field of expertise, chat and Baja are supportive, someone doesn't understand how cameras work, spurious symbology is evidence, the deep state, numerology, Hannah mentions cheese, hot pockets, aliens, someone forgets correlation isn't causation, forced sterilization, blah, 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 blah. So, no, I'm going to say I don't see one that's like ad hoc. Whoopsie. Whoopsie.
Thing, and Tesla thought he was really the only person worthy of making fun of. So let's get right into it.
Hey. You know, I don't care if people hate me, but I can't stand it when they...
Thank you, Dude Spanking Dudes with a bit says, the fuck is spurious symbology? Basically looking at certain symbols and saying, like, this is a symbol for a pedophile. I know this because of a thing from WikiLeaks. Or like, this is a pyramid. I saw one a while ago that was, look at this pyramid. It's a pyramid on the Apollo lander. Like, basically, like, I'd imagine, I didn't add that to the sheet, but I'd imagine it's like, you know, stuff like that. Finding symbols where there are none. I probably would have named it a little differently, but...
They misquote me. One of the defining features of the stupidity of the internet is that they'll actually try
Wow, this guy's internet sucks.
to
No wonder he's a flat earther. He can't take the time to Google anything. His internet doesn't work.
pull you down
What is up
and
with
say that you take a position that you don't.
This video is already like 3 minutes ahead loaded. I don't know what's going on here. All right, let's get going. This is Ken Wheeler, Mr. Magnetism. Link is in the details.
Don't actually take. The biggest one that always pops up is Einstein. And they say, "Oh, this guy thinks
I
he's
know.
so smart. He
Maybe
thinks
it's just a curse. Both him and I are dealing with internet problems because we're discussing flat Earth. The globe conspiracy heads are in on it. They must be destroying our internet to keep the truth from getting out.
better than he said so and so about Einstein." Actually, I didn't say that. What I was doing, in fact, was quoting Nikola Tesla. This is an important point, and
What is going on with
no
my
one's ever
internet?
made this in any.
In the chat, hold on. Fulmare says, the bald guy is an electric universer based on an outdated cosmological model abandoned in the 80s. He believes that electromagnetism created the universe. That seems
article
odd.
or book or anywhere on
Hold on, maybe it's because
YouTube before. Everybody could agree that Nikola Tesla was a very gentle soul. You know, he like hang out in the park, feed the pigeons. Like no one ever accused Nikola Tesla
How old's the kitty we're getting? I think 2 or 3 or maybe 4. I forget. It's around there.
of like popping his cork. Yeah, you know, getting violent. There's no recorded incidences of Nikola Tesla in fistfights or anything. He was obviously a gentle soul. The only time of record that we have where Nikola Tesla lost his cool, harangued endlessly, and
Didn't Tesla take credit for idea that wasn't his? Are you thinking of Thomas Edison? Thomas Edison stole a lot of shit. Or bought it up, because he had a company that he would buy ideas. I know a lot of stuff got stolen from Tesla. It's possible Tesla stole stuff. I'm not sure, though. I'm not too familiar with, like, you know, early, late industrial period inventors. No idea. Late period.
came close to pulling his hair out, Nikola Tesla, was his mentions of Albert Einstein. And what a fool he was. Specifically, he called him a fuzzy-haired crackpot. There's a lot of quotes from Nikola Tesla about Albert Einstein. Specifically, the notion of the reification of space as having properties, which is the position and the insane position of relativity, and that forward by Einstein. He said that this was foolishness. Also, too, here's another quote from Tesla. "Relativity is a beggar wrapped in the purple robes of a king, whom ignorant people take for a king. This theory, says, is wrapped in fallacies and is a mathematical garb that's magnificent, which fascinates, dazzles, and blinds people to countless underlying errors. The theory is like a beggar clothed in the purple robes whom the ignorant people take for a..."
Okay, no offense. Tesla invented many great things. He invented, I think, alternating current, which is what we currently use for our electrical systems in the U.S. If we used a direct current system, you would need way more way stations, and it would be more expensive to run. But the guy wasn't right about everything, right? He also wanted to do wireless energy, which, as you can imagine, when you think about what wireless energy looks like, it looks like a lightning bolt. It's not exactly the most, like, realistic thing to want to work towards, and other stuff like that. So, like, he's a brilliant guy, but like all brilliant people, all of his ideas weren't great. He can also be wrong, right? Another example of this would be Newton. Newton, again, basically laid the groundwork for all of what we understand as not only, like, science, but physics, right? The guy also was into biblical numerology and alchemy, trying to turn lead into gold, right? So, brilliant people are brilliant, and they can do amazing things, but that doesn't make everything they say or everything they touch automatically right. you need to look at the claims they are making on their own merit, and that's why someone like Darwin, for instance, if we're looking at biology, brilliant guy, was the first person to sort of spell out the theory of evolution and how we understand it, but he wasn't necessarily right on every little detail. I think he didn't understand, for instance, a lot of the things we understand today about it. Like there are parts in the book where he's like, I don't understand quite how this feature could evolve, but he even says, but I'd imagine at some point we will figure out a mechanism by which this will occur. So this is appeal to authority at its worst. It's one thing to say, like, oh, doctors are saying to wear masks, so you should wear masks due to COVID. That's not an appeal to authority, because you're literally just saying, this person has more knowledge than us about this medical thing, we should listen to them. But to say, like, Nikola Tesla said Einstein was bullshit, so obviously it's bullshit because I like Nikola Tesla. No, because that's not even really his field of expertise, right? He's an engineer. He's a guy that deals with electricity. Einstein is a guy that was a physicist and worked on the Manhattan Project. His purview was, like, physics and stuff like that, so very strange appeal. Frenic31 with 50 bits is another example. Despite how stupid Ben Carson is, he's also one of the best neurosurgeons in human history. True, that's very true. Ben Carson, idiot on a lot of topics. He thinks the pyramids were grain silos, but he can cut into a brain real good. Fulmare, the Electric Universe guys are based off some grifters that were electrical engineers. This particular guy thinks that Tesla was a victim of the Illuminati-esque conspiracy to hide that there's a giant transistor that powers all the stars in our galaxy. Oh. I rule fucking crazy.
For king. My conclusions differ from Einstein's, and it is to this extent that tends to disprove the Einstein theory. My explanations of natural phenomena are not so involved as his. They're much simpler. And when I'm ready, I'll make my announcements. Those are the papers, by the way, in the missing trunks of Nikola Tesla that disappeared at his death, unfortunately. We do actually have some of the unified theory from Nikola Tesla that survives. Very, very little, unfortunately. He also wrote a really neat poem for a dinner party for his friend, by the way, and I've talked about this before. It's a very involved poem, and the whole poem is about throwing poo in the face of... Yeah, Nikola Tesla wrote a fancy poem about what a stupid, ignorant dingleberry Einstein was.
That's fantastic. I love nothing more than old-timey, like, pre- or early 19th century. You see, this is one of the reasons I like Hamilton so much, because it portrays this, like, absolute polite savagery so fucking well. You can see this, too, in the movie Amadeus, where Amadeus is, like, this brilliant pianist, but he's also, like, a man-child. I love the fancy poems and things people used to write, and elaborate letters, and this beautiful, like, calligraphy, like, writing that just are basically big fuck yous. Like, there's something to be said for a good just call-out tweet, but it's not a fucking letter you spent all day on because there's no TV, there's no movies to go see, it's just hot, and you're sitting in your study writing a fucking letter all day, and this is what you do. It's a bit of a lost art form. And I enjoy that kind of thing. It's hilarious.
The most gentle person of our scientific history. And, yeah. So, we know really what Nikola Tesla thought about Einstein.
Okay, Nikola Tesla doesn't like Einstein. That doesn't make Einstein wrong. It implies that these people think that Einstein came up with general relativity. And everyone was like, oh, Einstein said it? It must be true, as if no one else double-checked. As if people who are in physics, or are in college for physics, whether it be undergrad or up to, like, you know, you're getting your PhD in physics, let's say, as if you don't go through the process of understanding what general relativity is and how to prove it mathematically. Like, Do they think that college is just you go in and they go, this is E equals MC squared. It is true. This is true. Believe it. And everyone goes, oh, it must be true. You've told me to believe it. No. College is about explaining theory and walking you through the steps so you can find the answers for yourself. And as it turns out, hey, general relativity works for what it is. It's not a complete picture because, of course, now we have stuff like quantum physics, but it helps us understand things, and that's all stuff in physics is. It's models to understand the laws in the universe that make things function. Daddy Sume, with 10 bits, most gentle person in scientific history, who is also a proponent of eugenics. Oh no, was Tesla a eugenicist? Yikerinos.
This theory of Einstein relativity is a mass of errors, deceptive ideas, violently opposed to the teachings of great men of science in the past and even to common sense. Einstein is a beggar dressed in the purple robes of a king. Once again, he says that again. Since action and reaction are coexistent, it follows that the supposed curvature of space, a la Einstein, is entirely impossible and absurd. Also, Nikola Tesla. There's a lot of other stuff that we need to actually talk about Einstein. By the way, I think last year, Einstein was famous for having kept diaries. Yeah, of his travels, things he would see, he would comment.
Oh, he's going to bring up the racism thing.
On him. His family doesn't want those, but one got translated from the German. And it's published by the prestigious Princeton University Press. You can find it on Amazon. It's called The Travel Diaries of Albert Einstein. It's only part of them. This only involves the Far East, Palestine, and Spain. And within it, I can't tell you here in a YouTube video because I'd have to say some really heinous stuff in quoting what Albert Einstein said. Hardcore stuff that you would not believe that came out of...
Again, this has nothing to do with whether or not general relativity is true or not. You can think Einstein was the biggest douchebag on the planet. That's fine. I'm not telling you how to feel about Einstein. I don't particularly feel one way or another about him, and I haven't read enough to form an opinion on a man who's been dead for decades. It has nothing to do with whether or not general relativity is true.
Of his pencil in his own personal diary. He said, you just imagine...
Lieutenant Havoc says he would later remark how silly his racism was in his younger years, so he even grew and changed. Interesting. Again, I don't think it matters either way. Whether he changed or was a legit racist his entire life, nothing to do with general relativity. Means a lot to his character, means a lot to how you should view him, but none of that is an issue connected to the fact that relativity is true.
Like the most crazy, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama redneck,
It's not, someone asked, does this count as citing a study from the 18th or 19th century? It's not really a study. He's more kind of citing an opinion by Tesla. So I don't know. I don't think that counts because it's not an actual study. It's just like saying Tesla didn't like him. No, this does not count for racist disbelief of historical events. Just something... Racist disbelief of historical events is like someone saying, they couldn't have built the pyramids. Or someone saying, like, I don't know, where's another place? People couldn't have come from Africa. Like, that would be racist. It's not just any racism. It's disbelieving a historical event happened because of some underlying racism. That's what that means.
A true hater.
On the bingo card.
I'm going to give you a picture. You can look up this book, by the way, and look at some of the quotes from it. Einstein said that stuff and way worse. So, he said it about a lot of different races. So, that's a fact. This is Princeton University Press publication. So, Einstein was a hardcore hater. There are many varieties of humanity.
Yeah, this counts for expert gives opinion on something outside of his title of expertise, I'd say. I'd say that in terms of Tesla, because Tesla isn't...
Yeah, but,
God.
Just as a little side...
Because Tesla was not, like... again, Tesla's a smart guy, but I don't think he was qualified to comment on whether or not general relativity was true.
that, and this is only one diary of a certain part of the world, several parts of the world, that he wrote about. Other diaries exist from him, not translated. I don't know if they'll ever reach the light of day, because there's a lot of people invested in this guy's image, maintaining...
Did you hear what he said? This globehead just told...
Wait, did I click on the wrong one? Expert has a ridiculous... Oh, whoopsie. I clicked on the wrong one. There we go. Thank you.
Told you guys, there's a lot of people invested in maintaining Einstein's image. Now, we'll get to why that...
Not particularly. Again, I don't particularly care what you think about Einstein. Doesn't matter. You can think him later in life recanting and saying he was dick. You can say it doesn't matter. He still was racist in his youth and consider that to be more of his character. You can think he's sort of a mixed person who had, like, different opinions throughout his life, so it's complicated. You can think he completely redeemed himself by what he did later in his life in terms of trying to promote civil rights. Whatever you think, fine. It's irrelevant to whether or not general relativity is true, and it's irrelevant to whether or not gravity exists, because it does.
That is in a minute. His name means one stone. So they're actually mocking you guys, telling you got one stone rolling around in your head.
Wait, do you think Einstein is like a fake character? You think he was like a persona made up to promote the fact that gravity exists? Gravity was already like a well-established force long before Einstein was born.
Because you believe Einstein's abstract theory of relativity nonsense.
Pristine nature, which of course it never had to begin with. But yeah, so Einstein was a radical hater, the likes of which you didn't even know. This is his own words. They just translated from the German. Princeton University Press is pretty prestigious, by the way. I love some of the stuff that they put out. I always have on metaphysics and philosophy. So Einstein was...
I'd imagine not actual physics, though. Interesting how you selectively pick and choose what you like from them.
A hater. He was a nasty, disgusting bigot. This is not my opinion. This is hardcore fact. The most gentle scientist in the world and the most brilliant, Nikola Tesla. The only time Nikola Tesla rags on somebody, and he does it endlessly, about what a fool he is Tesla about Einstein.
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
This relativity was... And by the way,
And
you need to
Bebo,
look this guy
thank you
up.
for
Most
following.
of you have never heard of this person. His name is Henri Poincaré. You could just type in Henri. Henri Poincaré. Poincare. A lot of his stuff is a free download on Archive. 90%, roughly, of what Einstein is famous for was stolen from Henri Poincaré. Let's go over some of the...
I don't know whether or not that's true. It also has nothing to do with whether or not gravity or relativity is true. And I think it also flies in the face of them claiming that it's untrue and that Einstein was somehow a persona, right? Because if they were going to create a persona, Einstein, and his name means one stone or something, I'd imagine, in Hebrew or something. If that was the case, why would they then steal a fake theory? They could make up their own. Why would they plagiarize a theory if it was fake? That doesn't make any sense. So either you can argue Einstein was a dirty plagiarist, or you can argue Einstein made everything up. You can't really have it both ways. It's like they're trying to attack from two avenues that completely cancel each other out.
The timelines. 1895, at the age of 16, Albert Einstein fails a simple entrance exam to the engineering...
Einstein is a German name? I guess I just assumed because it ended with, like, Stein, and I know Einstein was Jewish, so I wasn't sure.
School in Zurich. 1896, at the age of 17, Einstein became a high school dropout.
That makes sense, though. Ein, Wein, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks.
German citizenship is revoked, and he enrolls at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich.
Are you guys hearing this? This is good.
1898. Poincaré in France writes the paper on the theory of relativity. It wasn't called Relativity by Poincaré. So this was written in 1898 by Henri
Yeah, I don't know how to count in German. Sue me.
Poincaré, which never mentions Einstein, of course, which Einstein plagiarized as one of his in his 1905 paper, without ever citing Henri Poincaré. By the way, here's a famous true quote from Einstein. Einstein said famously, and it's so apropos to this, "The secret is hiding your sources." In other words, Einstein stole from a lot of different people, and he hid his sources, and he claimed it as his own. 1900, Max Planck and Wilhelm Wien of...
Again, this has nothing to do with whether or not relativity is true. Even if Einstein were a plagiarist, and again, I haven't looked into it, so I have no idea about Einstein's personal life, nor do I particularly care enough to look into it. Einstein's character isn't something that matters to me. I have to prioritize my time. Of course, I spend it doing this, so you are free to question my priorities. However, Einstein's credibility as an individual has nothing to do with whether or not E equals mc squared is true. It's been tested and shown time and time again to be accurate for what it's used for.
Deutschland, Germany, developed the quantum theory, which Einstein plagiarized in his Das Lichtquant, or light quantum paper, in 1905, 5 years later, citing neither Planck nor Wien. 1901, at the age of 22, after 5 years at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School, Einstein graduated with the lowest grade point average in the entire class. He became...
Okay, some people can be bad in school and be smart. Einstein, for a variety of reasons, might not have done well in school. Maybe he didn't test very well. Maybe he needs to take a lot of time and work on his own, and that sort of structured classroom setting didn't work for him. Maybe he was busy thinking about other shit. Who knows? It doesn't mean he was an idiot.
a Swiss citizen, and he got...
So he failed the entrance exam, got kicked out of high school, and he was determined to have the lowest IQ in class. People think this guy's a genius.
It's entirely possible he was maybe on the spectrum. I have no idea. But, like, again, it's entirely possible the classroom just wasn't meeting his needs in that day and age.
A job as a technical assistant in a patent office. 1905, Philip Edward Anton.
Oh yeah, he did conflate GPA with IQ. That's weird.
Von Leonard, yes, Philip Edward Anton von Leonard. Nice long name there. Who's Einstein's wife studied under. Yeah, Einstein's wife studied under this guy. Received a Nobel Prize. You can look this guy up too, by the way. Received a Nobel Prize for discovering the photoelectric effect, which Einstein plagiarized the same year as his paper, with no reference to Einstein. None. There's another one where Sir Isaac Newton talks about the bending of light around the huge gravitational acceleration of the sun. Einstein is given credit for that. There are actually three people that talk about this at great length, long before Einstein ever came around. Yet people attribute that to him. So his Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect, which, by the way, the explanation of which is entirely wrong, was not a discovery of Einstein. It was...
Lucas Dawn has a quote for me, I assume from perhaps Wikipedia or something, I don't know. Quote, "So why do so many biographers and even Facebook posts claim," this is from inventionland.com, interesting, common misconceptions about Einstein. Quote, "So why do so many biographers and even Facebook posts claim he was a bad student? It's actually due to a change in the grading system at his high school, Cantonal School. During 1 year in the first semester, Einstein scored a 1, which was the best possible grade at the time. The next semester, the scale flipped and 1 became the lowest score. So within a single year, his scores on his first semester and 6s in the second. Pretty confusing, right? Oh, so he's completely misrepresenting what happened even. What a shock."
Stolen from Philip Edward Anton. Like I said...
So he scored the best grade, not the worst. Genius.
90% of the stuff that you think E
Dare I say that this guy's quite the Einstein. Wah, wah.
equals mc squared, that actually first came out of Henri Poincaré, not Einstein. Everything, by the way, too, and I have to mention this one, thank you, there are 4 books, one of which is 2,300 pages long. I forget, it's 2,300. 4 books written about all the plagiarism of Einstein. Hardcore facts, not opinions, not conjectures. Einstein was a plagiarist and a fraud.
Again, what these people don't understand, I feel like I'm a broken record here, but I need to reiterate it time and time again because it's so important. It does not matter who came up with E equals MC squared. It is true. In the way that math is true, which, by the way, is like the only things you can actually prove. When you hear someone says, I have proof of something, they probably don't. What they mean is they have evidence. In math, you can actually prove things. And physics is mainly math. Thank you, BNIVEN447 for following. Bivin447, maybe? I'm not sure.
So we know that Einstein, by his own diary, translated from the German and published by the prestigious Princeton University Press, was a radical bigot, a hardcore radical bigot. The most gentle, brilliant scientist of our time, Nikola Tesla. The only person that he railed against as being an idiot, a fool, on and on and on. These are Nikola Tesla's own words. The only time Nikola Tesla loses his cool, the most gentle person ever, was about Einstein.
I think he was probably pretty pissed off every time Edison stole his inventions. I think that would probably piss him off. I don't know how much he wrote about it, but...
He stole everything from Hanley Poincaré. That's 3 strikes and you're out.
And like when Edison... Remember that time Edison electrocuted an elephant in order to try and discredit alternating current? Fun stuff.
Einstein's own name, by the way, Einstein, means one stone, which is a euphemism for being an idiot. You got one stone rolling around in your head.
What? I've literally never heard that used as a euphemism for anything.
Yeah, it's a euphemism for being an idiot. You have one stone rolling around in your head. So
This is how these flat earthers work. One of them will say a thing, and then everyone will go, that must be true. Yeah. I've never heard anyone use one stone as some sort of euphemism for being stupid. Never. You hear people ironically say, good job, Einstein, but that's literally because he's in pop culture considered a genius, and you're being ironic by saying, oh, you're Einstein, but really you did something stupid. I've never in my life heard on TV or read in a book or whatever heard someone say, he's a real one stone. That's not a thing people say. The Thes7274473 says Edison did what? Edison electrocuted an elephant to death, which is actually redundant. Electrocuted means electricity killed you. He electrocuted an elephant. It was an elephant that had killed some people, although I don't really blame the elephant because of circus conditions back in the day and even today. I'm not a fan of circuses. But in order to try and say direct current's much safer, which is the patent Edison held, and Nikola Tesla had alternating current as a patent, he electrocuted an elephant with alternating current to say, look how dangerous this is. Of course, that's ridiculous. You can be electrocuted by any electricity. It just depends upon, like, the voltage. But it was like a propaganda ad. It was like, look it, I can electrocute an elephant with alternating current. Isn't this dangerous? Yeah. Topsy was the name of the elephant. Hashtag justice for Topsy. Fuck Edison. Edison was an absolute asshole. And again, doesn't make light bulbs not real. And again, Edison didn't even really invent the light bulb, so.
who's going to be the hero?
Edison is basically Elon Musk of, like, the late 1800s and early 1910s. He owned a business, he hired a bunch of other smart people to come in and invent shit, and then he'd take credit. That's a good way to explain Edison.
For the globe, Einstein, the idiot with one stone rolling around in his head. Thank you very much.
So, there's actually a longer list than this on the timeline of Einstein. And if you want to check out that book by Princeton University Press, you can find that on Amazon. The Travel Diaries of Albert Einstein. Prestigious publication by prestigious university. Princeton University Press does really good work, mostly so. Almost entirely. They're really, really good.
He says almost entirely because I'd imagine they also publish physics books that don't agree with him.
I saw one person leave a review on this book, and it's just one sentence. Like, how dare you slander Einstein? He's such a brilliant man. It's like, this is Einstein's own words, just translated from the German into English. Einstein is a radical bigot. I can't even tell you. I would love to quote to you some of the things that Einstein said in his diary. I would actually love to. But I would probably, because YouTube listens to everything. They wouldn't know that I'm actually quoting of somebody. I can't tell you what it says because it's so radical. But it is radical. Look it up for yourself if you want some direct quotes from that book.
First, Senshini says he got the elephant for that stunt because it killed someone who was being put down anyway. Yeah, but like... And again, I don't blame the elephant because of the awful circus conditions. And honestly, you shouldn't be keeping elephants in captivity anyway. But they could have, like, shot it in the head and had it die quickly. But instead, they did the electrocution. And it was probably incredibly painful and really fucked up the elephant. Like, it wasn't an instant death for that elephant. Not a great time. Its eyeballs probably fucking fried. Not good. And then Apollo 8192 says, I've heard the insult that someone has a head full of rocks. Maybe they're referencing that. No. At best, they're tangentially trying to connect it to that. No one says you have one stone rolling around in your head. No one says that. People barely say you have a head full of rocks. But even then, it's always plural. Rocks. With an S at the end. No one says you have one stone or one rock in your head.
Of Einstein's diary. So, Einstein is a thief, a fool, a bigot. Nikola Tesla hated him. He stole everything from Henri Poincaré. He did not actually...
Are you going to actually do math and show me why general relativity isn't true, or are you just going to bitch about Einstein the person?
Discover the photoelectric effect at all. We know now, countless people have proven that light doesn't have a constant speed. By the way, it's not a speed at all, it's a rate of induction. Light slows down, rate of induction slows down in water, glass, so on and so forth. We've known that, of course...
You hear that, guys? The speed of light is not a speed at all. So anytime someone says speed of light, that's an oxymoron.
I'm pretty sure speed of light typically means speed of light going through a vacuum. That's what the speed of light is, because unimpeded speed goes at the same rate.
They're talking about a rate of...
You can talk about the fact that if you put lenses and stuff in there, it's going to change it, but that's not what people mean when they say speed of light. They're talking about the speed of light in a vacuum.
Induction. The speed of light's never been measured. They assume the vacuum of space. Then they do more math to assume how fast light travels. It's just hocus pocus nonsense.
Math is magic, because I don't understand it. Look, Nathan, I'm not good at math either. When I play D&D, which is, by the way, that's the channel icon, if you've ever wondered what the fuck that is. That's my D&D character. I use a calculator, or I use Roll20, where it adds up all the numbers for you, because I can't do basic addition quickly in my head. I just don't have a brain for math. But that doesn't mean I think math is some magic hocus-pocus people are making up. It's a way of describing things and forces in the world in a way that is provable against itself. You can check and see if equations are true by reverse engineering them, right? I don't understand what these people think the world is, other than flat, I guess. Mock Turtleneck with 100 bits says, science is full of stories of people stealing work from others. People broke into other labs, did propaganda campaigns against their colleagues to disprove their work and make their own seem more legitimate. The sugar industry lobbied a scientist to create results that said it was fat that was the cause of obesity. The scientist who proved sugar was the real culprit basically became a laughingstock and died as such despite being right. Science is brutal as hell. Oh yeah. Any enterprise that humans undertake is going to involve some dirty pool, because that's kind of how human beings are. I'd like to think within science the playing field is a little bit cleaner, because of the intelligence level often required to get like a PhD and actually do experimentation in whatever field. But of course, people are always going to backstab. People are going to steal other people's work. I was talking to Baha just the other day about this, and she was like talking about how sometimes a lab will see your research, and before you publish it, they'll scoop you, and they'll publish research that's very similar before that. And that sucks. But it's sort of human nature, and that's why science as a process is sort of self-correcting. At the end of the day, it sort of turns that human desire to be right and prove yourself better than others, and it says, fine, peer review this research, prove it wrong. And that's what you do. It's just a back and forth of trying to prove each other wrong. And that's why it works out so well. Crimson11, thank you for continuing your subscription.
Nonsense. Now, Ken Wheeler will promote this hocus-pocus nonsense, tongue-in-cheek, out of the side of his mouth, but what he talks about on his YouTube is that Einstein's a fraud and worse, and exposes him. Great job, Ken. Thanks so much. Couldn't have done it better myself.
Explanation is mine because it's accurate. Dielectric acceleration, that light bends under heavy gravitational acceleration. So when you say, well, last time was the lunar eclipse, so I proved Einstein's theory right. That was not Einstein's theory at all. It didn't belong to him. 3 people prior to him postulated.
Okay, it doesn't matter. It's commonly referred to as Einstein's theory of relativity, so people understand what you're talking about when you say it. None of this is discrediting the theory of relativity. You're trying to attach a personality to the theory of relativity and by proxy bring it down by disparaging the individual when they have nothing to do with each other. It could be discovered tomorrow that Einstein was just the worst human being somehow. He was secretly a German spy, and he was involved in who knows what, whatever. Of course, none of that's true. But even if it were, it would have nothing to do with whether or not the theory of relativity were true. Operation Paperclip in the United States, we recruited a lot of Nazi scientists to come and work on rocketry for the U.S., the rocket still flew, despite the fact that those people were awful. You get what I'm saying? People can be awful and be right. These things are not mutually exclusive, unfortunately. I wish that the moral good had a monopoly on accuracy. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. And often people who are incredibly evil or even just flawed will be right. And that's fine. Their writings and equations stand on their own merit, not because they're attached to a famous name. When relativity came out, and Einstein published that, people didn't say, oh, it's Einstein, it must be true. He became famous for the theory of relativity. So the theory itself stood on its own and made him famous, and put him in the popular consciousness. Fulmer says, the Electric Universe guys made a fake charity to develop something called SafeFire Project. There was only one ever physicist on the project, and he left due to them wanting to try, like, free energy shit. He did an email with Professor Dave Explains on his latest video. Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. I'll have to check that out later.
That light, like a star, would actually...
Not to mention, scientifically doesn't prove anything, because observations in the sky are not science. There's no way for the researcher to manipulate the independent variable or the cause of that effect.
Okay, but you can still make observations on those things, right? Not all science is literally like holding something in a box and taking away or adding factors. It's great when you can do that. Baja Blast, for instance, is a biologist, and she works on specific factors that go into the development of stem cells to see how they develop one way or another. It's this factor called OCT4. Again, I don't know anything about this, but in her lab, they're able to do whatever they do. Biology magic, I don't know, and fuck with this factor and see what happens, and that shit's cool as fuck. But that's not how all science works. In astronomy, you need to just look at the stars and see what you can find. In physics, you use math to create models and see how accurately your models and mathematical formulas line up with reality. And your formulas, including E equals mc squared, is only as good as its ability to predict how things function. So when they create these formulas and plug in all sorts of different variables and find out that these equations work, that's how you prove that your formula is true, by checking it against both putting different numbers in and making sure it all works still, and using it to predict things.
All you can do is be a globe earther, observe and declare, which is a fallacy.
I love you too, Baja Blast.
Called affirming the consequent. If P, then Q. We see P, so we live on a ball.
Appear over the sun under a perfect full moon. Under a perfect solar eclipse. People say, "Oh, this proves Einstein." Did it belong to Einstein? And it has nothing to do with warp space-time. Time is only a measure, and space has no properties. What is warping is the circuit of light under the dielectric acceleration.
Time is a measure, but it is also a way of understanding a sort of dimension, right? Because I can be in this chair, or I can be in that chair over there. That's a physical dimension, right? Me moving from place to place. But also, I can be in this chair today. I can be in this chair yesterday, which I was when I was streaming, and I can be in this chair tomorrow, right? So, time, we use it as a construct to help measure things, but it's only useful as a construct because it represents a real thing we experience. We experience things logically from A to B to C, cause and effect, right? That's time. The fact that my things that I do today have consequences into tomorrow and the next day and the next day, that's a consequence of time. If time didn't exist, then everything would be happening at once. Or things would happen all out of order and nothing would make sense, at least from our perspective, right?
Acceleration of the sun's what we call gravity. So that's it. Einstein is a bigot, a fraud, a plagiarist, and a huge thief, and above all else, a fool. And this is the person...
Again, you didn't do anything to actually discredit relativity. All you've done is try and take pot shots at Einstein. And I don't care whether or not Einstein is a good guy or not. It's irrelevant to the fact that general relativity is an understood and accepted concept within the physics community.
In the 21st century, heralds as a genius of geniuses. And he's not. It's not my opinion that that's the case. It's a fact that that's the case. But we live in a corrupt and sick age. You're brought up to believe this crap. I was told this crap, he's the most brilliant person ever lived, Albert Einstein. It's all a complete lie.
I mean, that's a weird pop cultural perception. Einstein, you see this it's like the Star Trek gag. In Star Trek, you do a thing where you name one or two real-world figures, and then you'll name a third future historical character. So maybe one person will be like, great physicists like Einstein, Hawking, and Shabadoo-ba-ding-dong, and it's like, the third one is, by context clues, you imply that they are also a famous physicist. There are people who are in pop culture regarded as incredibly intelligent and are sort of seen as cultural touchstones for an intelligent person. That's why you can ironically call someone an Einstein and they understand the insult. But that doesn't make them, like, one of the most intelligent people who ever lived. I'm not a big believer in generalized intelligence. I think it's more complicated than that. We talked about it earlier with Ben Carson, but... Effian32, thank you for following. But, I don't know. General intelligence is a discussion for another day.
Lie. It really, really is. The timeline is undeniable. It's like you can't infer other conclusions from this. These things were written by Henri Poincaré long before Einstein ever said them. Einstein literally did steal this stuff from Henri Poincaré. It's not my opinion that that's the case. It's a fact.
Okay, so if it turns out that that's the truth, and over time we come to discover that this Henri guy, or Henri, sorry, someone said I think their name was pronounced Henri. If Henri, as it turns out, is the creator of general relativity, great. it's still true. It wouldn't matter.
That's the case. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day, and...
By the way, what the fuck is this video, Nathan? You're not even commenting on this video. You just played this guy's YouTube video on your YouTube channel. Oh, it is a hashtag mirror. So I guess he is, maybe he asks people to mirror it at the end? I don't know.
Goodbye.
Some good stuff over there.
It's not quite, like what I'm doing, I'm pausing periodically and commenting and trying to refute what is being said. That's fair use. You just playing someone's video without their permission? Not necessarily fair use.
On Ken's channel, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to go follow him. Links in the chat box below and in the details. Also, hold on, where's my video? There we go. My video's not working anymore. Oh, wait. There's my video. All right, there's my video. Just want to show you guys one more time, and now to round up this video. Gravity is most accurately described by the general theory of relativity proposed by a fraud, a plagiarist, a fool, and a bigot, which describes gravity not...
None of those descriptors mean anything in regard to the actual math. Nathan, just because we can't do math doesn't mean calling people names will somehow undo the math, right? Like, imagine if I was like, black holes, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking, you cheated on your wife, which I think is true. With the nurse. But that's, again, irrelevant to whether or not black holes are true, right?
As a force. Okay, so anytime these globers are telling you, well, there's a force, it's a force. That's not what their religion teaches. Don't let them strawman you. The cause of that is allegedly bending of space-time, which is math on a chalkboard, which was introduced to you by a bigot, a fool, a plagiarist, and a fraud.
Nathan, do math. Do math. This isn't doing anything for you, bud. Hate to break it to you.
That's the globe, ladies and gentlemen, all wrapped up in a nutshell.
I can imagine a video where Nathan's like, all right, here's this E equals MC squared. Pfft, this Einstein motherfucker putting letters in his math. Einstein, don't you know math means numbers? I can imagine that video.
Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, please like and share. And I'll see you all in the next heavily censored and demonetized video. Peace out.
Okay, that's enough Nathan Thompson for today. By the way, this is my YouTube channel, Hannah Reloaded. I'm going to put a link in the chat if you haven't subscribed already. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Oop, that's the bingo link. Well, get the bingo if you haven't already. Here's a link to the channel I'll post. If you would like to subscribe, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize the channel. So feel free to subscribe and check out highlights. I have tons of playlists. I have Chud Watch as a playlist where we watch just all sorts of Chud stuff. Of course, I just have a stream highlights, so if you don't want to watch a whole stream, but you want to just see the different sections, like 18 minutes to an hour, most of them are. 20 minutes to an hour, a lot of these clips are. I, of course, have a Sovereign Citizen playlist and a whole conspiracy theory debunk playlist, which, of course, includes all the Tinfoil Tuesdays, and will continue to do so in the future. So check it out if you want a convenient way to check me out in the future, as my Twitch streams get deleted off of Twitch after 14 days because I'm not a partner yet. I'm only I'm an affiliate.